Hey there everyone, and I thank you guys so much for tuning in to yet another episode of My Orchid Adventures with me, Maria Young. So in today's episode, we're just going to have a very casual, laid-back conversation, of course, before I do the actual extreme propagation, or maybe perhaps not so extreme propagation with the catasetum that actually produced 11 growths, or so I said at the time. I actually found one more growth, so we're dealing with 12 growths on one bulb of one catasetum. So indeed, that is such an unusual and very rare occurrence. As a matter of fact, I have never seen that happen before, and if I hadn't seen it with my very own eyes, I can't tell you that I would believe you if you told me that happened. So indeed, I didn't want to be too anxious and just jump right in and make some wrong decisions. I believe that this was a case where I should consult others that love their orchids and are just as passionate about orchids as I am, and to receive some feedback from you guys, some ideas, your perceptions, and indeed suggestions on what I should do. And that's exactly what I did, and I have to tell you, I am so very thrilled that many of you guys jumped on board, gave me your honest opinions and also suggestions of what you guys would do, and it really opened up my eyes to so many different things. I mean, things that I would have never seen with my own eyes or by myself. And you guys gave me ideas that I just would not have thought about. So I think this was a positive, engaging conversation that I had with many of you guys, and I thank you in advance for all the help that I received from you guys. So there were actually many of you guys that wanted to take the safest way out. You guys didn't want to take any of the risk that could possibly happen, all of the probabilities with the extreme propagation. And I do have to agree with you. You know, I myself can't say that I want to do an extreme propagation on this orchid, for the simple fact that this is a very rare occurrence. I mean, how many times will this happen in my lifetime? I may never see this happen again. So for me to take the extreme approach and perhaps, you know, have nothing to walk away with, because in actual reality, it can be somewhat of a suicidal attempt, you know, and I just did not want to take that big major risk with something so rare as this. And then surprisingly, there were some of you guys that actually wanted to be bold about this. And you guys wanted to do the extreme propagation, which really surprised me. I really didn't believe any of you guys were willing to take that risk. And I have to tell you, you guys are like after my own heart, because you guys know in extreme propagations, you are going to push that orchid to its limit. And indeed, you are going to find out exactly what the potential is of that orchid. And I have to tell you, I have learned so much in extreme propagations, because orchids are actually more adaptable and more accommodating and even far stronger than we give it credit for. So how would you ever know unless you try it, right? Now, a friend and a viewer that goes by 1046 Ray actually gave me a great suggestion. Now, I'm not going to be able to use it in this case. I do not believe it is the most feasible way to do it, but it is an incredible idea that I want to use in the future. And what he suggested is to actually remove each individual growth and then put them all around a mount. So you would have a ring around the mount of catasetums. So you can imagine with the very tropical foliage that it has, and then of course if it blooms, oh my goodness, can you imagine all of the pendulant cascading spikes with the blooms all around a mount? That would be absolutely gorgeous. So indeed, I do have to try it. Now, I think it is a little bit risky in this case, because in order for you to remove the actual individual growths, you would have to remove it before all of the roots grow in, because again, the roots can be quite hardy and just really vivacious and really take over. So it's going to be difficult to remove them once they get at a pretty good size and the safest size to remove them. And if you're going to catch it before it grows all of those roots, it's going to be really small, and I don't think that it's adaptable enough or strong enough at that size to actually be self-sufficient, to be capable of doing what you say to do. So in this case, I'm not going to try it, but I'm going to try it in the future with other catasetums and see what we get, because indeed I think it'll be fabulous. And I also had a very intriguing conversation with a friend and a viewer by the name of Rocky Cat. And what he explained to me is those rings or those joints on the orchid actually acts and functions as a dam where it can retain or disperse the water according to what the suitable needs. So if I was to actually make that cut or that incision into the rings, of which I would be doing if I cut it vertically, it could affect the water flow or the water distribution to the orchid, in which it can cause great harm to the orchid. And what he also explained is if I was to make such a major cut, because I'm cutting it completely in half, that wound would be so huge it would lose so much water that the plant would become dehydrated. So that cut would actually allow too much water release from that orchid that, again, it could cause the orchid so much harm. Now, as you guys know, I am not a professional horticulturist or plant scientist by any means. All I can go by is my experiences and, of course, what I've learned through my research. So I definitely have to research this a little bit further, and I also have to give you my input in regards to what I have seen through my experiences. Now, through my experiences, because you guys know I've done several propagation projects and also some pretty extreme ones. And the ones that I've actually divided, I have noticed that the plant actually has a way of regenerating itself. It also has a way of clotting and also sealing to where it can protect itself from infections and also any loss or release or discharge of any fluids or water. And usually you can also use cinnamon to further advance the drying process. So to me, in actual reality, I don't think if you cut the orchid there'd be a sudden release or a flood of fluid or water that it would cause the orchid to actually just dehydrate like that. In actual reality, when you make a cut, the orchid has a pretty much strong enough clotting process that it dries up and seals, I would say within about 30 minutes. It can be completely dried and sealed. And of course you can use cinnamon to quicken the process as well. So in that regard, I don't know if it would become dehydrated as you would say. And in actual reality, this kind of tempts me or inspires me to want to do an extreme propagation on this, just to see what the orchid would do. So yeah, that's food for thought. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get the extreme or perhaps not so extreme propagation started, and let's do it right now. Okay, and here we are, folks. These are the materials and also tools that we're going to be using in our project today. Right here we have a container that's full of sphagnum moss that has already been pre-moistened. We also have a container full of water. This is just going to help us to clean off the actual bulb. We also have this cinnamon right here that's going to help us to dry and heal the wound. And we have this spray bottle that's filled with peroxide 3%, and that's for sanitization purposes. We have a pair of scissors, also a sharpened knife, and we have this cutting board. And right here is the catasetum type of orchid that we're going to do our project on today. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and remove it out of its container. And there you have it. And we're also just going to remove all of the media that's in the roots right here. And all I'm doing is massaging it, and I'm also kneading it, just ensuring that I'm removing all of the media within the roots. And now that the media is completely removed from the roots, we're going to go ahead and just gently pull apart the two bulbs. There you have it. It was that easy, that simple. And then now we're just going to go ahead and remove the roots from the actual bulb by cutting them off. And right here is our sanitized pair of scissors, but we're going to go ahead and re-sanitize it yet again with this peroxide. And we're just going to spray it down really well Also spraying this down as well. Letting it get in between the crevices of the scissor. And we're just going to go ahead and spray down the catasetum as well. There you go. And now we're just going to go ahead and do the cutting process. And as I told you before, you want to really be careful when you cut off the roots, especially when you get nearer to the base area, because that is where some of the growths are. And I actually literally cut some of those new growths off by accident in my other experiment. So indeed, that is a great learning lesson. Again, we're just going to be cautious right here, and we're going to remove all of the roots just by cutting them away. Simple process right there. And we're done with that one. Then we're going to go ahead and do the same thing with the other bulb as well. And now that the roots are completely removed, we're going to go ahead and just wash and clean these off in the water. What I'm also doing is I'm removing some of that dried sheath material on the actual catasetum bulb. And this is just really going to expose what's really going on with the bulb and the actual amount of growths. So that's what we're doing now. And here we are, the catasetum bulb is all cleaned off. And again, I've removed the dried sheath, so we definitely can see what's going on with the bulb. And as you can see, the rotting is right there at the top, and it's actually started to really move in. So what I'm going to have to do is make a cut where I can ensure that it's going to be a clean cut without any infections. And also I'm going to have to make sure that I don't cut into any new growths as well. So I have to be mindful of that. Now there is a new growth right here, but it's just too close to that infection. We're not going to be able to save that. I'm going to take it a ring down, or in between that ring actually is where I'm going to make that cut. So here we go. We're going to go ahead and make that cut right here, folks. A nice clean cut. And there you have it. I'm going to go ahead and spray this down with peroxide again, and then we're going to go ahead and coat this with that cinnamon powder. And I figured, what the hey, I might as well try to save that one little new growth there as well, right? I mean, I'm going to go ahead and throw this part away anyways. Why not try to save that one little piece? So we're going to go ahead and try to do that just as best as we can. And we're just going to cut right here. Hopefully it'll be a clean cut without any infections, and look at there. It is. So we might be able to save this one, and if we are, now that would be indeed an extreme propagation right here. Now it's time for us to apply the cinnamon right on the wound. There you go. Right there on the wound. And then there's also a wound right here, so I'm going to go ahead and apply that to that as well. And there you go. And then we're just going to set them aside to dry off. And now that we've gotten this catasetum type bulb all cleaned up, and also the majority of the dried sheath-like material removed as well, we can really get a better idea and a view of what's really going on. So let's take a closer look and also do a recount, because I think you guys are going to be just as amazed as I am. And starting at the base, and because we've removed all of those roots, now we can really look and see exactly how many potential growths there are. So let's start off with this one right here, which is a potential growth. That's one. Here's another one, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's just the remnant of the old spike. And here's a 6th one right there. So there are 6 potential growths on this side. Let's turn it over and look at the other side. And starting at the base on the other side, if we look right there, you'll see a potential growth. So that is 1 at the very bottom, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, there's a teeny weeny one right there, and 8. So there are 8 growths on this one side, and also 6 growths on the other side. So the grand total count of all of the possible growth points are actually 14. We have 14 potential new growths on our hands. Now, will all of them take root? Probably not. But just to see that they have the potential of creating all of these growth points are just really quite amazing to me. And what's even more amazing is that many of our orchids have this capability. It's just we've never really taken notice. So indeed, the capability of our orchids is quite limitless, I have to say, because they always surprise me. So what we're going to do now is we are going to finish this off. Okay, and here we are, folks. And although I do know that this is a rarity, but this really just makes me want to see exactly what the potential and the capability that this catasetum has. So we're really going to push the limits on this one, and I hope you guys can bear with me and understand the decision that I did decide to make. So here we go, folks. We're going to go ahead and get this started, and we're going to try to line it up as even as possible right there. And you know what else we're going to do? Wait, hold on one second. We're going to go ahead and just put this little guy safely to bed right where it will grow. How about that, folks? How about that for a happy ending? Yay! And yes, indeed, folks, that is our plan of action for this catasetum right here. I think this is the best way to go on this one. And as you can see, it's just lying flat, and both sides of where the new growths are growing will actually have the ability to somewhat sit on top of the moss, and then once those roots grow, that gravitational pull will pull them downwards versus growing onto the new growths. And then the new growths will actually upright itself and begin to grow upwards, so preventing those roots from choking them out. And in actual reality, plants and vegetation have a unique way of accommodating whatever circumstance they may be in. So in nature, if a plant were to fall on its side similar to this, what would actually occur is the plant will encourage more growths to grow, because again, they are reacting to an emergency situation where they are trying to sustain their livelihood the best way they can. And I've seen this in many trees that have been uprooted, and what normally occurs is the tree will actually promote more branches to grow, and those branches will grow upright, and that tree will continue to grow with many branchlets just growing upright, even with the roots extending outwards from the ground, again just accommodating their situation. So I do believe in this case this catasetum will accommodate its situation and find a new way of growing, in which this will actually encourage many of these growths to continue to grow, and of course growing upright and abundantly. So I'm very excited to see the outcome of this catasetum, and you guys definitely be sure to stay tuned for more. We have a lot of high expectations for this catasetum. And this right here is the extreme propagation portion of this project. And of course, you guys know this comes from the bulb that actually had that extensive rotting at the very tip of the bulb. And we cut it away, and we're trying to see if we can go ahead and propagate this and see if these new growths will grow. And of course, what we're going to do is the same exact thing as we did with the extreme propagation that I did in my last video. Now, if you guys did not see that video and you want to know exactly what I did to them and also what I'm going to do to these, go ahead and click on that link right there, and it'll take you to that video now. And there you have it, folks. That is an absolute extreme, or perhaps not so extreme, propagation wrap. I thank you guys so much for tuning in to yet another episode, and I have to be honest with you guys, I was like this the whole time. I really did not know which way to go on this one, and I thank you guys so much for your input, because indeed it allowed me to make the decision that I believe is best. Now, whether or not it is, I don't know. What do you guys think about my decision? And of course, you guys have to post those comments below. I thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode of My Orchid Adventures, and I hope you guys like, share, and also subscribe. And of course, you guys know I am on Facebook, so join me there as well at My Orchid Adventures. And if you guys want to write or send me something, you can do that also with the address right here below. Also, I am on eBay selling some phenomenal orchids, so check me out there as well. Now, you guys already know that I do love and appreciate you guys so much.